The first section of the ACT is the English section. This section really deals with the basic grammar and writing rules and application of these rules. In this lesson, we will look at several rules, hints, and strategies for selecting correct usage and correction of pronouns, parenthetical phrases, run-ons, fragments, comma splices, and fanboys. Our first selection deals with singular and plural pronouns. Unless you're in an English class, you probably don't need to know how to label certain pronouns. What you really need to know on the ACT is that pronouns take the place of nouns. The noun which the pronoun takes the place of is called the pronoun's antecedent. You don't really have to know that term for the ACT, but that is the term I will use in this short lesson when I refer to the noun connected with a pronoun. Many times people use a plural pronoun, something that refers to more than one thing, to replace a singular noun. That's a big no-no. Here's an example. If a student won't study, they won't do well on the ACT. While this is a true statement at its core, the pronoun antecedent agreement is wrong. They is a plural pronoun, and a student is a singular antecedent. We need to either change a student to students or they to he or she. On the ACT, you'll have a choice of answers. In your own writing, you'll have to make the decision yourself. The next topic deals with parenthetical phrases. The word parenthetical refers to parentheses. When I first learned this term, I thought it only dealt with parentheses, but that's not the case all of the time. In fact, on the ACT, parentheses are rare when dealing with parenthetical phrases. Parenthetical phrases can be set apart by commas, dashes, or parentheses. The same punctuation must be used on both sides of the phrase. The parenthetical phrase does not affect the subject-verb agreement, so you may want to drive around it or avoid it when you're looking at the subject and the verb, or not even read it when trying to find out if everything agrees. But that's a lesson for another day. I know you're probably like, what is she talking about? Here's a simple example. My father, who is very good at archery, taught me how to hunt. The blue part of the sentence is the simplest part of the sentence. The green part is the parenthetical phrase. Notice that it has two commas, one on either side. If you take it out, the sentence makes total sense. If you put the green part back in, it just clarifies some information about my father. It's called a parenthetical phrase because it's something that you can add to the middle of a sentence to clarify the sentence or to give some more information without really changing the nature or meaning of the sentence. Just make sure of two things when looking at parenthetical phrases. One, the punctuation, either a comma, a dash, or parentheses, are the same on both sides of the parenthetical phrase. And two, that the sentence without the parenthetical phrase makes complete sense and is a complete thought, like the one about my father. Okay, next is run-ons and comma splices. I like to teach this because commas are the most missed rule on the ACT and the SAT, and students of your generation, on average, totally don't know how to use commas. The first rule I want to share with you about commas is one my 7th grade English teacher taught me, and it's true. When in doubt, leave it out. I cannot express that rule enough. Here is the real rule. A run-on is a sentence that really has more than one sentence in it and uses incorrect punctuation. If you're going to put two sentences together, you can only do that in two ways. Either use a semicolon and only a semicolon, or use a comma with a fanboy. I'll get to what that means in a minute. A sentence that combines two sentences and uses a comma without a fanboy has used a comma splice, meaning that it stuck two sentences together with a comma. That's a no-no. Here's an example of a comma splice with two possible solutions. After halftime, I went home. My friends stayed. This is a comma splice because it has two sentences. After halftime, I went home and my friends stayed. On the left-hand side of the page, you'll see one possible correct solution. After halftime, I went home, semicolon, my friends stayed. Notice that the sentence before the semicolon is a complete thought, and the sentence or phrase after the semicolon is also a complete thought. That has to be true in order to use a semicolon. On the right-hand side of the screen, you'll notice another possible solution. After halftime, I went home, comma, but my friends stayed. Notice that I used a comma and a but in order to combine both of the sentences and make one complete sentence. Now, I know some of you are asking, what is a fanboy? Fanboys is an acronym for the conjunctions that can put two sentences together. Fanboys, for, and, nor, but, or, yet, and so. Go back to the previous sentence and see the fanboy's choice. But this, combined with the comma, allows the two sentences to smoothly merge. Finally, fragments. A fragment is an incomplete sentence. There are a few of these on the ACT. There are many of these in the writings of high schoolers, and there are even more of these on Facebook. An incomplete sentence is a sentence that is an incomplete thought. When I go to the store, I will get the cereal. The first sentence is not a sentence, it's a fragment. When I go to the store. The period needs to be a comma. Read each sentence and see if it's a complete thought. If it's not, and you're taking the ACT, look at the answer choices to see which one makes it a whole thought and a complete sentence. If you are just in your everyday life or an English class, read each sentence by itself when you are proofreading your work and make sure each one can stand alone. This has been your first lesson in English rules.